Support for Elwood City Limits is brought to you by Facebook,
Facebook.com/Elwood City Limits,
Twitter,
@ECL Podcast,
Tumblr,
ElwoodCityLimits.tumblr.com,
and Gmail.
ElwoodCityLimits@gmail.com.
And from listeners like you. Thank you.
And my free time.
Got to get that in there. There, Elwood City Limits listeners. This is Will Young. Actually, Lucas Mancini, not by my side this time because we're doing something a little bit different. You see, Lucas has fled the country and is on vacation. And he is going to be on vacation for this week. And instead of, skipping an episode, we decided that we were going to talk about our favorite episodes of the first season of Arthur. So we've both drafted a top 5 list for your enjoyment. You can use this and, collaborate and listen. Check out some of the episodes we're talking about if you haven't yet, if you haven't been watching along with us. Or you can send in your own top 5 list. As a matter of fact, I'm going to give you an opportunity to do that in just a few minutes. But we're going to be starting off this episode with the top 5 Arthur Season 1 episodes of Lucas Mancini. So, I think it would sound something like this.
All right, hello. Me. It's me, Lucas Mancini. This is my top 5. I'm going to start it off with my top 5 in the NBA right now. It's John Wall, James Harden, Westbrook, LeBron, and then Curry. Top 5 in the NBA without a doubt. That was a lot easier than picking my top 5 favorite Arthur episodes. I'm Lucas Mancini, unfortunately without Will Young, because this is my personal top 5 favorite Arthur episodes from season 1. It's in the books. Now, a quick note before I do my personal top 5 list. Season 1's the longest Arthur season at 30 episodes, so if I've forgotten an episode that I have previously said has been my favorite or that I was really into in an earlier Elwood City Limits episode, I'm sorry. Consider that an honorable mention. Without further ado, number 5. I really wanted to put a DW episode on the list, and there's so many to choose from. The one where she gets lost in the mall was really good, and I still quote her iconic yell from DW Flips to this day, but I had to go with DW's Snow Mystery for number 5. I like any episode that's a mystery episode, and I also like that most of it is in one location, with the characters trying to figure out what happens through hypothetical flashbacks. It gives me like a usual suspects sort of vibe. It's also one of my all-time favorite endings in the first season. I love the way that episode ends. Just a solid DW episode all around. Number 4 is Arthur's Substitute Teacher Trouble. I came into this podcast with Mr. Rapburn as my favorite character, and he continues to be one of my favorites as we watch more and more of the show. And this episode is notable not only for the first appearance of the I Like Fudge song, which comes up later on, but there's also a hilarious series of vignettes of Mr. Rapburn's so-called origin story featuring his sister. This alone gets this episode on my list. I think it might have been the second most me and Will have laughed on the show, but it's also a really funny episode as a whole, and I like the overall story. Number 3, Arthur's Cousin Catastrophe. Now, this episode is by far the hardest I've laughed at any Arthur episode in the first season. Something about Arthur's traumatized childhood, his stealth mission around his house, and the wild antics of his extended family are hilarious to me, from his dad's failed attempts to keep the reunion on rails to his uncle's loud complimenting of Arthur's cousin. This episode had me rolling like none of the other Arthur episodes thus far. Number 2. Now we're really getting into it. Grandpa Dave's Old Country Farm. It's so rare for children's shows to tackle complicated topics with the sensitivity and the grace of Dave's Old Country Farm. I was floored by the story of Arthur's Grandpa Dave learning to ask for help in his old age. This episode shows that some of the most engaging and rewarding Arthur episodes aren't just funny or just teach a simple lesson, but can tell an adult story where a character grows and learns. And Grandpa Dave's Old Country Farm is one of the best examples of that. Number 1, my favorite Arthur episode of Season 1. I'm biased. I know if I took an Arthur BuzzFeed quiz, I'm sure I'd get Buster. He is, for lack of a better term, my Arthur Sona. So the story of him struggling with studying and his friends banding together to help him hit home with my own academic struggles. I'm, of course, talking about Buster Makes the Grade, my favorite Arthur episode this season. It's funny, touching, and most importantly, I felt it was really real, so real that it got me to empathize with an InfoWars watching bipedal rabbit such as Buster. But truly, I did see myself in that episode, and so it's why it's my personal favorite. So there you have it, my top 5 Arthur episodes of the season.
All right, thanks a lot, Lucas. Those are some good picks. I was going through them and trying to mark down where we kind of met on the same road. And there were a couple places. I actually found that my list, when I do something like this, I write down a bulk amount of episodes and then try and seed them from there. A lot of them were Buster-centric. A lot of the Buster-centric episodes made the rough cut, and those are most memorable just because I think they're usually the funniest, and in some places the most memorable for sentimental reasons as well. Before we get started with my top 5, I wanted to name a couple of honorable mentions. I'll just go by these quickly. I wanted to note my honorable mentions include Arthur's New Puppy, big fan of the Arthur-Pal dynamic. Grandpa Dave's Old Country Farm, great episode. Just didn't quite make my top 5. The Scare Your Pants Off Club. We kind of were down on this a little bit when we talked about it, but I look back on it fondly. I think I remember it fondly for just the time when I was a young reader myself. Arthur's Lost Library book. That one I really like, along with Buster's Dino Dilemma, for some of the funniest episodes of this show. I remember the discussion around those episodes being really, really funny. Arthur the Wrecker, speaking of great discussions, this one, the episode is kind of so-so, but I loved the discussion on PC games that we had as a result of it as well. And finally, Arthur and the Crunch Cereal Contest. I love how out there that one got. Okay, so now my top 5, and as Lucas himself explained, if I didn't represent any episodes that I had previously praised, or if there are some episodes on here that I wasn't crazy on, well, just chalk it up to my opinion changing or me just forgetting what I said. Okay, number 5, it's going to start off with Arthur Accused. Arthur Accused was one that I really didn't expect a lot out of, but as we discussed in that episode, it ends up being almost like a noir detective story for kids, and in that sense, I really appreciated it. I love Buster Baxter, Private Eye, and I love the allusions to that character that kind of come back as the season goes on, and hopefully as the series goes on as well. I loved the narration of Buster. Again, Buster-centric episode, even though Arthur is something of the focus of it. And yeah, I thought it was really fun. I thought it was funny, and I thought that the mystery around it was interesting for kids. And like I said in the episode, it's a great look at a mystery structure, and kids can really go from there. Number 4, it's going to go to Arthur, World's Greatest Gleeper. Now, you want to talk about great discussions here on the show. Now, I don't know about getting better, but hardly any were my favorite compared to us swapping tough customer lines. The introduction of Molly, Rattles, and Binky as the head of the tough customers is really a great memory for me, especially Rattles. Rattles really became a dark horse for my favorite character of the season. Not in terms of so much being a character, but just in terms of the best lines. He was easily one of the funniest. The rabbit stays. Great stuff like that. Just like, Mr. Ratbird don't got no socks full of holes. He's a very upstanding kind of guy. Just Rattles is hilarious. I also like the main message of the episode. It tells a very good story as well. I really felt for Arthur in the situation, and I thought that, once again, very well told, but has a special place in my heart because of how funny it is, and it reminds me how funny Arthur can really be. Number 3, is actually the number one of Lucas Mancini, Buster Makes the Grade. Buster Makes the Grade, when I was thinking about it, actually reminded me of a Simpsons episode that I hold very closely to my heart. Bart Gets an F. It's an earlier series one. I believe it might be season 2 or maybe 3. And they both kind of have the same idea of two of the main characters kind of underachieving in academics and really trying their hardest. The end result obviously is a bit different. In Buster Makes the Grade, Buster indeed does make the grade. Whereas in Bart Gets an F, it's a little bit different, and I might hold it above it in that regard. But all the same, I like the tackling of this issue that, some kids have a bit harder time with academics, and I think there's a great story structure here. It's Buster. The odds are placed in front of him. He really has to overcome them, and in the end, he does, somewhat at the expense of Arthur, which I thought was pretty funny. I just think it's a really tight story structure, some funny bits in there, and there's a lot of heart to it as well. And I think that it's very indicative of how good Arthur can be as a show. Number 2 is a tie. I really couldn't choose between this one. Now, I said to Lucas, we're counting individual stories, not bundled episodes. But I'm going to cheat a little bit on this one. Number 2 is Arthur's Baby and DW's Baby. So, I have a new baby in my life, not mine, but my niece, and it kind of made me realize it's almost like coming full circle in a way, because the first time I would have seen those episodes, I would have been very young, had no experience with young babies. I have an older sister. I don't have any younger siblings, and seeing it then, it was, funny and all that kind of stuff, but maybe harder to relate to. Now, seeing it now, it's very interesting to see both of their perspectives. I love stories where you take one event and you see it from different perspectives. I think that that's really cool, and this is a great way to do it with Arthur. I like Baby Kate a lot. I look forward to her kind of being more of a character and instead of, just a sound effects factory. But I think that she leads to a lot of fun sitcom-y situations that I think Arthur pulls off very well. And it's interesting to see both Arthur and DW's perspective and their different anxieties and hang-ups. It really is a deeper look at their characters. And I really like it. And I think it's one of the strongest full episodes of the show. Number 1. Now, this one surprised me. I didn't expect. I put this on the rough cut list, and I thought, this might make the top 5. But the more I thought about it, it really is my favorite episode of the season, and I may have said as much in the episode we talked about it. And that would be Bully for Binky. Bully for Binky, it's interesting because, you watch this episode, and you look at the episode list for season 1. Arthur has so many episodes that are named after him or devoted to him. So you think that the show will mainly revolve around him. But I think the best character development, maybe aside from Arthur, just based on sheer amount of episodes, the best character development in the season that we got in one episode, I would argue, is Binky. Binky became a fully fleshed out character in practically one episode, and it was compelling. It was very interesting to see how Binky's character worked, and it made me realize, that's why I enjoy Arthur so much. It's not just, a kid's show. If it were any other kid's show that I watched when I was young, I would probably forget about it. But I haven't forgotten about Arthur in the 20 years plus maybe that I've been watching it. It's really been the character development, the attention to character detail, and the ability to let them grow and change that it keeps me coming back to it and makes me glad that we picked it as a show. And nowhere do you see that stronger, in my opinion, than Bully for Binky. I think it's a great episode, as always, with a little bit of humor, but I came to love the character of Binky. I'm not sure if I would say he's one of my favorites, but I definitely understand him the best. And I think the continued use of him and continued character growth is very strong. And this was in my opinion, the strongest of the first season. So there you go. There is mine and Lucas's top 5 of the first season of Arthur. Now, I would like to challenge you to come up with your top 5 Arthur episodes. If you'd like to include a reason with them, I would love to hear it. You can email it to us, elwoodcitylimits@gmail.com. And I'll tell you this, we've had some great listeners give us a lot of great feedback over this season. If you send us your top 5 episodes over to elwoodcitylimits@gmail.com, I'll tell you what, I will put together a small care package, let's say. Now, I can't promise any, sponsored Arthur content. I can't promise any big-time prizes, but I think I can put together a little something for a devoted Arthur listener. Depending on how many we'll get, I'll choose one at random, and you'll get a nice little care package from Lucas and myself here in Nova Scotia. That's if you send us your top 5 Arthur episodes to elwoodcitylimits@gmail.com. I'd really love to hear what you thought of the first season. I think it was a definite strong start, long start as well. We really got a lot behind us with the 30 episodes in that season, and I can't wait to see more. So until next time, when Lucas returns from the land abroad, and we get back to talking about Arthur Season 2, send us your picks to elwoodcitylimits@gmail.com. I'll give that a full week before I call off the contesting there. And you could win yourself a nice Nova Scotia care package from yours truly and Lucas. In the meantime, my name's Will Young for Lucas Mancini. Thanks a lot for joining us for the first season of Arthur. Elwood City Limits returns with a full episode next week.